All right, guys, there are 4 income-producing multifamily properties that hit the market in South Florida today. We're going to review them all and stay tuned. It's the first time that we're going to actually be going through our different statistics as we go through the show. I'm going to be able to show you guys if it fails, if we're going to go and look at the next stat before making a decision, or if it's a clear pass. So with that being said, guys, I'm excited to get today started. Let's go. All right, first things first. We want to look at the rental calculator. And if you look at the interest rate that I am using on the calculator, it's important because it's going to determine if it's a good deal in today's market with today's interest rates or not. Now, you might say, hey, in the future, I might be able to refinance. Yes, but I don't want to tell somebody, hey, go buy this property on the hopes that you're going to be able to just refi it in the near future. I want to make sure that it cash flows today with the interest rates that you could get today. And in the future, if you could improve the deal, amazing. But if not, we're gonna look at it with using today's numbers. So that being said, you could see right here, I'm gonna show you guys, the Federal Reserve actually publishes this information and they tell us that the interest rates right now for the last week for the 30-year fixed rate mortgage are at 6.37%. And so again, that's what we use on our calculator. Now, that being said, we want to also know what the actual market looks like, and not just by these 4 homes, right? We want to see what the market at large looks like. And so for that, we're going to go right here, okay? And we're going to look at this market watch. As you guys can see right here, the market watch. This is the information that's available to every real estate agent that we also have access to, okay? I'm sharing some stuff here that you usually cannot see if you just look it up online, all right? But this is what I look at: how many new houses hit the market, okay, and how many how many homes had price decreases, how many listings had price decrease. And so you can see that there's about 2,100 homes, 2,100 homes that hit the market in the last 7 days, and in that same period of time, 2,150 homes have seen a price decrease. So it's basically a 1-to-1 ratio again, guys, where we're seeing for every home that's hitting the market, you're having another seller say, hey, you know what, let's decrease the price of the home. So what does that tell us? That tells us that any property that we're looking at now, right? The probability that this seller is going to drop their price, even though they just listed it today, the probability that this seller is going to drop his price at some point in the near future is pretty freaking high, okay? And so I say this with, so you could keep that in mind. If there's a deal that's borderline, right? You could almost have a really good feeling that you're going to be able to go ahead and negotiate and push that deal over the edge, right? And so we'll talk about negotiation tactics as we go along, and depending on the deal, there's different types of levers that you're going to pull on to be able to negotiate a better deal for yourself. So let's just get started. Let's go down here. We're looking at these properties at the same time that you are. New multifamilies in the last 24 hours. Click on that. And we're going to look at them all at once just to see what we have in store for ourselves. Okay, the prices go anywhere from $1.3 million down to $670,000 today. We're always going to start by price per square foot. And I'll tell you guys what I see right off the bat. I don't like any of these. I am going to predict that none of these are going to make sense, but you never know. Maybe I get surprised. Usually we want to look at deals that are less than $400 a square foot. That's where the real winners are at. In my experience, but sometimes you have outliers, and you know, these are all, at least they're less than $500 a square foot. So with that being said, let's take a look at these. All right, first property, and as I talk, I'm going to put this information in the calculator. Right, it's a $1.3 million property. Okay, they're currently paying $18,136 a year in taxes. Square feet, 2,700 square feet. Okay. And how much are they getting in rent? They don't tell us, but they do tell us it's in flood zone AE, which isn't the greatest. So you're going to pay a little bit of a premium for that. Let's take a look at the pictures before we go any further, guys. Okay, so you can see here it's Calais Drive, right? So this is North Bay Village over here, downtown Miami way over there, right? And so this is Normandy Isle. This is what this is called, Normandy Isle. And yeah, it's a small island. It's actually part of Miami Beach. So let's take a look at the actual property. All right. I would say this is a pretty good area, guys, right? So, okay. Doesn't look terrible, right? It's close to the water. That's why it's a flood zone AE. It's a freaking island. Okay. But it's not on the water, which would be nice. Or on the inside, you could see it. There's some renovations that, might be needed. Look at this kitchen right here. And I don't know why this real estate agent went ahead and put 4 pictures in one instead of just putting more pictures. But okay. All right. Box AC, guys. Box AC. Just call that out when you see it. Flat roof, right? Call that out when you see it too. And it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a fourplex, right? Okay. So it's a fourplex with how many parking spaces? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spaces, maybe a couple more. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. All right, guys. So maybe it looks like 6 parking spaces. Let's look at the guts of this deal, because how much would it need to make in rent for it to be a 1% rule, right? Our first test is the 1% rule. So ideally, we're looking for it to make 1% of the purchase price per month in rent. So that means that if they're asking for $1.3 million, we would hope that it makes at least $13,000 a month. So let's see how much they're actually getting. Let's look at the guts of this and figure it out. Excellent investment opportunity in the heart of Miami Beach. This 4-unit multifamily offers a strong income potential in a highly desirable location. This is true. The property maintains 4 well-maintained unit, temple light, blah, blah, blah. But they don't tell us anything. You notice that? They don't tell us anything at all about the property itself, the breakdown. So let's see if the city is kind enough to tell us what the breakdown of the units are. Let's come in here. 4 units. And the place is a total of 4 bedrooms and 4 baths, right? So now we know that there's 4 1-1s here, right? 4 1-1s. And so, right, we are not sure yet where we are at when it comes to our 1% rule. So we're going to go to the next thing, and what we're going to analyze is the rent, okay? So let's go ahead and let's analyze the rent here. They say that it's 1-1s that they have. Sorry, here we go. So they say that this property is 4 1-1s. And so we're going to go ahead and check this out. Sorry, guys. There we go. Boom. We're going to check out the rents. And so what we know, it's in Miami-Dade, right? And that they're 1-1s. Now, based on the condition that I saw, right? I would say it's like a middle tier property. Look at these box ACs. You don't find them. This is like a C-class property in a really good area, right? So this is potentially good because once you're in a good area, you could get more rent. However, the limiting factor here is not so much the area as it is the asset. So the physical asset itself, I think that in the area, you could probably get more than $1,600, guys. But because the property is a little bit beat up, right? I think that maybe what you could actually get here is closer to, $1,750. So it's going to be a little bit more than the median just because of the location, but it's not going to be by a whole lot. So if you put $1,750 per unit here, you end up with $7,000, guys. And what did we say that we required in order to be a 1% kind of property? $13,000. So if we go back now, right? We did the rent check. We go back here and we look at this, right? It is not looking good. It is not looking good for the 1% rule and also not looking good for the DSCR. So we're actually going to go ahead and say this property is a fail for the 1% rule. Now the rent check looks good, guys. Rent check, I think that we could actually go ahead and increase the rents on this property because again, it's in a good area. So I think that the rent check is a pass. Now let's go ahead and let's check our last metric, or our next metric, better yet, and that's return on investment. And what do you see here, guys? Would you rather invest in the S&P 500, getting you 10% a year every single year, basically, while you sit on your couch, or would you rather get amazing 5.5% interest rate returns, right? Return on your investment, if you put 25% down? Because other than that, if you put cash at 6%, but I mean, it goes low as 3.8%. Nobody would do that in their right minds, right? Deal with headaches, deal with tenants, and all this other stuff, and then just know that you could be making more money using S&P 500. So for that reason, this property is a straight up fail for the S&P. Now, does this property cash flow? Can this property cash flow? We have a pretty good feeling by now, looking at the 1% rule, knowing that it doesn't really, it can't really get you that good of a return on your investment. We're going to know what this property could actually do. We're going to go right here and we're going to look at our return on our investment. Okay? Sorry, our cash flow. And well, unless you buy this property cash, you're not going to be cash flowing for about 17 freaking years. Okay? At best, right? At best. If you buy this somehow using FHA, man, you'll cash flow like a couple months before you're free and clear of having to pay back your loan. So you could see it right here. For the most part, on every single type of financing, right? Whether it's FHA, 10% down payment, or 25% DSCR loan, you're gonna be under zero. You're gonna be coming out of pocket every single month for years on this property at what we think that we could currently get. So for that reason, guys, this property is a cash flow killer, right? And now that being said, guys, we go to our last one, and we're going to look at if the property could actually create wealth. And I don't think so, right? So, but let's check it out. So you can see it here, guys, right? It'll actually create wealth for you if you put 25% down payment. But even if you consider the appreciation the property could have, the principal payoff that the tenants would be helping you make, right? And the tax advantage that the property provides, this property is just not good enough at creating wealth. So for me, again, this property is not something that, it's worth looking at. It's another one that's actually going to destroy your wealth for a number of years before it actually starts building it back up for you. And so for that reason, we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that this property also destroys wealth. And so totally fail this property. I don't think this property is worth looking at all. So unless, of course, the only way that this property could make sense, guys, so I promise you I'd show you how that would look, is that we get closer to this number, right, times 100 in the purchase price. So we would want this purchase price to be closer to $700,000, right? Because if it is, then look what happens to the wealth. You start making it on day one, right? And even though you're cash flow negative, right, on day one using FHA and 10% down payment, by year 10, you're making money. You're cash flowing again, right? And if you use 25% down payment, you're cash flowing on day one. You're cash flowing on day one. Your return on your investment over the life of a loan here could be up to 14%, right? And then again, of course, if you let's say one day interest rates drop to 4.5, when this whole thing with Iran is over, and if we could end up in good terms with them and trade with them and do all this other great stuff, then it becomes a much better property. But even at that, I've seen properties that are way better than this that could provide a lot better returns. So again, because they're definitely not, the interest rates are not at 4.5, and because this price is almost double of what we expect something like this to be, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass on this property and we're going to discard it. Okay, so next property up, it's in Boynton Beach. So we're staying in the beaches, just further up north. And this time they want $700,000 for it. Okay, they're currently paying in property taxes just $7,138 a year. Square feet wise, 1,700 square feet. And they don't tell us how much they're getting in rent or what flood insurance they're at. So let's check it out for ourselves. Let's look at the pictures first, guys. Property looks nice. The roof looks nice. Landscaping could do better. Okay. Don't mind the furniture, guys. Look at the condition of the floors. Look at the walls. Look at the ceiling. Look at this old looking, ceiling that you could totally redo. Not mad at the cabinets because you could actually paint them, and they're shaker style cabinets. You could just put new handles on them. They'll look great. The countertops look good too. These walls I'm not a fan of. Okay, not a fan of the floors either. Okay, today we have real estate agents with really crappy pictures. All right. Okay. Let's see what this property can do. Let's go up here, guys. Let's come down here and see what they are doing. So no HOA strong, income generating duplex opportunity near downtown Boynton Beach, featuring two well-designed 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. Each unit includes its own private driveway, washer dryer hookup, ideal for tenant comfort, retention, offering a 6.64% cap. That is meaningless to us because we don't know what expenses they're counting in on their net operating income. So a cap rate is ridiculous. All right, so we'll go down here. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, $2,400 that they said they're getting on each side. Red flag here, guys, red flag, okay? Month to month, red flag. That should stick out in your head. Like, that's a problem. Why? Because short-term leases, like month-to-month leases or Airbnbs, often charge significantly more money than you could normally get for a long-term lease. In trade-off, they're going to be there very little time, right? But what happens? Very little time. Let's say they give you another $200 a month or another like $300 a month. Guess what? At the end of that month, you're going to have to go in there and you have to do a bunch of touch-ups, right? So that it looks good for the next tenant to rent it out for you, right? Or if God forbid it's an Airbnb, you got to clean, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do a bunch of different things to get it ready for the next guest to come in. And so when you see this month to month, that is not a good estimate of what the property will actually produce. The idea for owning property is that you own them and you rent them out in the long term. You rent them out for a year so you don't have to continuously deal with the headache of looking for new tenants, okay? Ideally, you're renewing your tenants and you're even giving them, especially in this market, an incentive to stay there longer, okay? So for that reason, I mean, we could give this guy $2,400 just for shits and giggles, just so we could analyze this, right? But we know that this is probably not going to be the price that we're going to be able to get this. But we'll do a rent check anyway. We'll do a rent check now. So, guys, even with it, right, if you could get the rents at $2,400, it wouldn't really make sense. It's a 0.69%, but it would be able to be enough where you could find a bank to loan you money, okay? It would be at a higher interest rate because it's only at a 1.1 ratio. Basically, it's paying 113% of your mortgage, right? Banks usually like to see that the rents pay about 125% of the mortgage. This year, the DSCR is called the debt service coverage ratio, as many of you guys probably know, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for 1.25 and up. But again, this is sort of passable. So what we can do for this deal is we could say on the 1% rule, we're going to go ahead and we're going to say, we're going to go, not fail it, we're going to look at the next one. Look at the next stat. And let's make sure that these rents actually match up. All right. So we're going to go here to our rent check. And so this guy was saying that he was getting $2,400 in Boynton Beach, okay, for a duplex. Now, Boynton Beach is in Broward County, right? And we're going to look at the maximum amount. So max on a 2-1, right, is $3,000, right? So we're saying that for what you guys saw those floors, you guys saw, the quality of that apartment. And let's go back in case you guys forgot to see what it looks like. Box ACs. So old looking kitchen. So I don't think that this is, with these box ACs here, I don't think that he's getting you get $2,400 there at all per month. I think that in that apartment, you actually end up getting closer to that median, if that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to call BS on the rent and say that it's a fail with a rent meter, okay? But of course, you want to go in there and you want to verify those rents if this property made some sense. But even at his numbers, it's already not making sense, guys. It's already not making sense. So we're going to come down here, look at the returns, guys. At best, you're doing a 9.5, okay? At best. Assuming that he's accurate with his rent here, right? So for that reason, too, we're going to go ahead and we're going to say on the return on investment, this property fails. All right, cash flow. This is the property cash flow. Let's go down here, guys. Dude, this property would cash flow after even if you put down 25% down payment, this property wouldn't cash flow until after almost 3 years. Okay, guys? Every single metric, you would start off paying money. And we're not in it to pay money. We're in it for the property to make us money. Okay? Even if interest rates drop, let's see what happens. It might actually go up because that's a big drop. Okay? But you can see it there, right? You would still be cash flow negative when you're using 10% on FHA. So with an interest rate that great, you should not be cash flow negative at all. But right now, the way it is 6.37, so you're especially cash flow negative. Now this property can provide, and let's put that here, guys, so it does not pass cash flow test. Now this property can create a little bit of wealth, but it's not enough, guys. It's not enough for us, okay? We're looking to create a good amount of wealth, not just a little bit of amount of wealth, right? And so you guys can see here, right? If you count the rent that the tenants are giving you to pay off your principal, if you count the appreciation that the property might have and the tax advantage that it could provide, you know, it would actually technically provide a little bit of wealth across all types of financing, including as little as the 3.5% down payment. But again, there's properties that do way better than this, guys. And so for that reason, I would say that this property also doesn't create quite enough wealth for us. So with these different factors in play, I would say that this property is something that we're going to go ahead and we're going to pass on. It's not something that we're going to keep looking at. So let me know if you guys have any questions about this one. But for right now, it's going to be a discard. Okay, next property up. Okay, so let's put it in the calculator here, these numbers. Go back up here. So they want $845,000 for this fourplex in Miami. All right, that's actually enticing, a fourplex for $845,000 in Miami, paying $11,533 a year in taxes right now. Total square feet is 2,107 for a fourplex. It's quite small, okay? But they're saying that they're collecting $6,400 a month in rent, okay? And right off the bat, that is not too freaking bad, okay? It's not the 1% rule that we'd love to see, okay? It's not even a 0.9 or a 0.8, but you know, it's above the 0.7 mark, right? Above the 0.7 mark, you might be able to have something to work with there, right? And on the DSCR ratio, right, you're pretty close to that 125 number that you're looking for. So let's analyze this property a little bit more. But first, let's look at the pictures and see what kind of product we're dealing with. Okay, flat roof, older, you know, chain link fence. So, you know, you have the fire extinguishers out here. Like, it's just not looking like, you know, the big for rent sign out there. Okay, so the guy's struggling getting tenants. Carpet, flooring, God. All right, so yikes. Terrazzo floors there. Or is it just terrazzo and it's just really ugly? It might be that. It might just be terrazzo. And if it's terrazzo, it's not that bad because it's usually nice and level. You can maybe even polish it. Or you just put floor on top and it'll be easier to put floor on top. All right, on this side, they have laminate. Kitchen's okay. Okay, what I didn't really see, guys, is the ACs. But there are AC vents here. So it might be under central AC. Oh yeah, the AC was right there. Sorry, silly me. All right, so central ACs, that's nicer. Let's look at the guts of this deal and see if there's something that we can do here. Okay, so turnkey fourplex in Alapata, generating immediate cash flow. Fully rented with stabilized income, no vacancy. Each 1 bedroom, 1 bath features updated kitchens, modern bathrooms, individual electric and water meters, and parking. Prime location, 2 to 3 miles from Wynwood, 10 minutes from Miami Beach, yada, 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 yada. Okay, so they say that they have 411s that are leased. It looks like it might be a long-term lease, each at $1,600. So Let's go back here, guys. We know that each one is being rented for $1,600. All right, the 1% rule, if we're looking at this, and sorry, I forgot to reset this. The 1% rule is going to tell us like, hey, you guys know what? Look at the next couple of stats and see if this property is actually worth continuing to look at. So let's look at the actual rents. They told us that it's $1,600 each. Now, let's fact check them. In Miami-Dade 1-1, the median is $1,600. Now, this area, guys, right? This area is right above a very desirable area. The plans for Alapata, if you don't know, are actually in the works. Like, supposedly, the idea is that Alapata is like the next Wynwood, right? And so you might be able to snag a property now that in the future, right, it's worth a lot more money. So I say all this saying the following. The play here is anticipation of future growth. So it just depends on your belief of like how much this area will grow. It would depend on you actually going to visit it, because Alapata is pretty freaking big. So like, how close is it to the areas that they're going to try to gentrify, that they're going to try to like, you know, really pour money into? And if they pour all this money into it, then are you located in that area? Are there other tax advantages to this property, right? In an economic opportunity zone where buying this property also makes more sense. So these are the things that you got to analyze, because I do think that you could get the median, and maybe in the longer term, you're able to get more rent, and your property will appreciate a lot better. So for that reason, right, I would say that the rent check is a pass for me. I think that it has a good prognosis in this one particular area. Okay. So we're going to go here. We're going to go right over there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to give it rent check pass. All right, now on the return on your investment, right? How is this property actually looking? Because maybe we're just better off putting our money in the S&P 500 and not worrying about having to deal with tenants and wait all this time for this property to do better. So let's check it out. Okay, guys. So you're basically across almost all different metrics. If you're using leverage to buy this property, right, you're getting basically the same amount of money that you would as you wouldn't get in the S&P 500 at the current rents. Again, so now this is again another play of like, what do you guys believe that where this is going, right? So this is a barely passing for me. Normally, something that just matches the S&P, I would say not worth it. Not worth it because you have to deal with tenants, you have to deal with, you know, like the markets, you got to deal with, you know, issues, whether it's a roof, ACs, whatever, all these other issues. Is it really worth the 10%, right? You could just put the money there and not have to worry about it, but now you do have to worry about the tenants and vacancies and all that stuff. So because it's just there, right? But because this property might have a potential upswing, I would say that this it kind of like, for me, this says like, hey, you know what? Look at the other stuff. See if you could actually get some cash flow on this property, and then call it. So let's look at the actual cash flow that this property can do. Now, you see it right here, guys. If you do 10% down payment or you do FHA down payment on this, you're not going to cash flow for this property for many years, okay? Too many for me, right? But if you do a 25% down payment which a lot of investors, you know, like are able to do, a DSCR loan, right? Then you would be cash flowing on day one. Now, the cash flow wouldn't be amazing, right? It'd be damn near zero, as a matter of fact. Let's go and check out how much it'd be. It would be $44 a month, right? But again, it's your belief in the area. It's your belief in the area that is really going to drive this decision of if this is a property worth it for you, right? And so look at our last thing that we're going to look at. And so for that reason, right, I'm going to go ahead and say that for the cash flow, it's also not a pass, but it's a next. Let's look at the property is able to create wealth for us, right? And we're going to look at the last metric here. And you can see that it actually is able to create wealth across all different purchase types that you do, whether it's FHA financing, 10% down payment financing, a 25% DSCR loan, or if you just buy it cash, the property is able to create, an okay amount of wealth. All right. With FHA, let's see, well, you're basically around like $1,000, like $2,000 a year, or like $1,500 a year that this property is going to produce in wealth. And again, that's the cash that it could give you, which we know that doesn't give you much when it comes to FHA and 10%. But it's also the appreciation that the property is going to have, the principal that that tenants are paying off for you, and the tax advantage that it provides. So it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest, wealth creator, but again, depending on the area and the growth that this area might have, it might be a wealth creator. So just as the deal stands, I would say that this is I would pass on this property. I would pass on the actual wealth creation portion of this property. I wouldn't say it's the greatest, okay? But I think that, again, the rent here, the potential rent increases and the potential appreciation play is a big thing. So I would say that this property is as it sits, to me, it's a D property, but it has the potential to be a C, maybe even a B. And I'll show you guys why. Okay. Now, we went ahead and we said that the rent in Miami-Dade, right, for a duplex for 1-1s is from anywhere from $1,600 to $2,300. Now, I can guarantee you guys that in Wynwood right now, this duplex, you just sat it in Wynwood, right, you would probably get about $2,000 for it, okay? Maybe a little bit less, but let's say $1,800. Let's see what happens if all of a sudden you could get these rents up to $1,800, guys. Now you're at $7,200. Where are you on the 1% rule? 0.85. Look at the DSCR. You're at 1.33. You'd get a loan on this all day, okay? Look at the returns on your investment, right? 14.5, 14. This property is now a C, right? This property, I think, is a C, getting close to a B. I mean, this is total like return on your investment, but if you're able to buy this using FHA, you put $30,000 down, and over 30 years, in return for your $30,000, I'd give you $2 million. Like, that's a pretty good return on your overall investment, wouldn't you say? And again, you wouldn't cash flow for years, but you'd cash flow a little bit better, right? Now, if you could combine that with a very low interest rate, all of a sudden this property looks really, really good. So, but there's just too many factors for me, guys. So again, it's interest rates are not at 4.5%. Rents are not at 1,800%. And so the reality is that this property right now, for me, at best, is a C. All right, let's go ahead and let's look at our next property. We're going to go ahead and discard this one. And it's actually our last one for the day, guys. It's the last one, and we're in Hollywood, an area near and dear to my heart. That's where my first investment property was at. Okay, so before we look at the pictures, let's put some information in here, and let's reset our meters here. And we're gonna go here, we're gonna there. All right, so this duplex in Broward County is listed for $670,000. They're currently paying $5,462 a year in taxes. Square feet, it's on the smaller side, 1,671 square feet. Okay, they are telling us that they're collecting $4,200 in rent. But it's in flood zone AE, which is not the greatest, but you're just going to pay a little bit extra when it comes to your flood insurance. Let's look at the pictures for this property and see what kind of condition it's in. It's got one of these annoying light-looking fans. It's probably one of these fans. They probably started renovating it pretty soon. You could tell because they bought this door new and they just left it with the primer. They didn't actually paint the door. Okay. They put the nice, doorknobs on these. On the outside, the property could use a bit of paint, and it has a lot of like green stuff everywhere. Okay, this looks like it's digitally, what do you call it? Staged. I mean, to be honest, you could put these pictures in ChatGPT; it would stage them better for you. It's got central AC. Man, these pictures are crap. But crappy pictures are good for buyers because it scares a lot of the newbies away, or a lot of the people that just go in to buy investment property without thinking much, because crappy pictures just filter out all those people that are just going to buy pretty stuff, and pretty stuff sells at a premium. We want to buy stuff on the cheap and be able to turn it around on the cheap into something that looks premium, and that's sometimes not that hard to do, guys. Some paint and some cleaning and good pictures go a very long way. Because if that's how they're trying to get tenants with these pictures, imagine, if you were looking for rent, if you'd, right? Like look at in their own pictures, right? You look at these pictures, I tell you like, hey, do you want to live here or do you want to live there? You're like, dude, like that's completely different. Like you're showing me two different houses, and I'm not, right? So anyway, all right, so let's look at the guts of this deal, right? Right off the bat, right? If we are at $4,200, sorry guys for the noise, and they're asking for almost $700,000, you could guess where it's at on the 1% rule, right? And it's not that good. It's at 0.63%. The DSCR at this point is just above 100%. So this would not be good enough for most banks to lend you money on, right? Again, banks want to see that the rents are able to pay about 110% at minimum of the mortgage that they're going to be, that they know that you're going to have to be paying. So let's see if there's anything that we can do to salvage this deal. Once we look at it, maybe there's information that wasn't put there correctly. But right off the bat, this 1% rule is not passing for us. Whoops, let's go here. So we're gonna analyze it before we call it a fail, all right? And so what do we see here, guys? It says excellent investment opportunity, beautifully remodeled. Do you guys see it there? Beautifully remodeled income producing property. This unique duplex features 3 independent units featuring a spacious 2-1 and a 1-1 and a separate studio, offering flexibility for investors or owner occupants. Both main units have been fully updated with elegant marble floors, modern appliances. Man, I really hope that they didn't spend money on marble. Modern appliances, and abundant natural lighting throughout. I think that this is BS. I think that looks like tile. That's formatted to look like marble, but it's definitely not marble. Unbeatable location, just 2 blocks east of Federal Highway, minutes from downtown, downtown Hollywood and Hollywood Beach. True valued opportunity, yada yada yada. So it's a 2-1. All right, guys, it's a 2-1. They say that the 2-1 is being rented for $2,300, and they say that the 1-1 is renting for $1,900. Okay. And they say that there's a studio where the owner lives, right? And this is all in 1,670 square feet. Okay. So this was probably 2 2-1s, and then the owner's living in that studio. All right. So let's look at the actual county records here and see what's up. So it's 2 units. It's 1 story. Okay. But they don't tell us how many beds and bath there are total. Okay, all right, so we don't get that information right off the bat, but we do get a building sketch. Let's see if you guys want to take a look at that, if it helps us out. Well, it looks like this building sketch might not be sketching. Let's reload it. Nope. Okay, so the building sketch isn't sketching, all right? And for that reason, this property for me is a little sketch, okay? Look at the rents, right? Broward County, 1-1s, right, are renting for $1,600. If this guy already kind of like split up that unit, it's no longer like a super, livable unit because it was probably 2 2-1s. It's not a triplex, it's a duplex. And now he turned it into a triplex. So that 1-1 is probably kind of like, not botched, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's got some plastic surgery done to it and not very good from, what we can see here. So let's see what the 2-1 is getting. Okay, so no, I'm wrong, guys. So he's getting $1,900 for the 1-1, right? The median is $1,600. So this guy's getting more than the median in Broward County, right? In Hollywood, right? And he's getting $2,300 for that 2-1. Okay, $2,300 for that 2-1. I don't see it. I don't see it, guys. I don't see it. I call BS on their rents, okay? Unless they could show them to us, right? And again, there's another big flag, guys, month to month, and that's why it's BS. These are month to month leases. They're gonna charge more, but that means no security for you. No security for you because those tenants could up and leave at any moment, okay? So rent check is a fail. Now let's go ahead and let's look at the ROI. This ROI, again, based on the information that we know, right? We're not going to be able to increase these rents a whole lot. Okay, guys? We're probably going to get less money than this because if we want long-term tenants, we're probably going to get closer to, the $1,900 here and the $1,600 there. And at that point, this is a terrible return on your investment. So I would just go ahead and say this is also a fail, right? And we don't really need to look at the rest, guys. I could guarantee you that this property is a fail here and it's a fail there. And we're gonna go ahead and say that it's also a fail for the 1% rule here. And so that's it, guys. That's the property. Those are the properties for today. There's one maybe that's worth keeping in your back pocket, if you go through all the other good deals that we've been able to find on the show. And everything else, just kind of like discard it. I mean, if you want to keep track of this stuff, you can. I would suggest that you kind of like say like, all right, this is like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, F tier, and work your way down, right? Like go look at the property starting at the top. Don't waste your time on anything that's, a D or below. And honestly, don't even waste your time on the C's. I would put my time and focus on S, A, and B tiers, right? S tiers, you got to run to those, right? And we come across those once every 2 months on this show. And we're looking at every single property every single day. So with that being said, guys, let me know if you have any questions. We will see you guys tomorrow as we analyze more properties. See ya.